around toll-free verification. The landscape of SMS is changing. I want to be your guides through how we can help your company best optimize and implement SMS as a part of your customer engagement efforts. Go ahead and we'll continue on. My name is Ben Francis. I'm the head of customer success and support here at SalesMsg. With me on today's webinar, we've got my colleague Sergey, who is one of our co-founders, CTO, Chief Product Officer here at SalesMsg as well.
Hi, everybody.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to cover today. So as I mentioned, there are new rules for SMS. We'll go over why we're having this discussion, what the changing landscape looks like, what we need to do as SalesMsg customers to verify our toll-free numbers, and what does that process look like end to end, as well as covering specifically when do we need to have this done, and cover a few key questions along the way. So as I mentioned, the landscape of SMS is changing. We're seeing SMS and just general text messaging dramatically increase in terms of ROI, in terms of engagement, as we see the fall of email engagement over time. As a result, there are some changes in this space that will better help our customers ensure that they're getting your messages when they need to get them and when they are opting in to receive them. That's part of what we'll cover here today as well. Let's go ahead and go on. Perfect. So if you are viewing this webinar, I don't need to belabor this point, but we know that SMS works for a multitude of reasons. As we are a highly connected culture, we know that email open rates are continuing to decline, and our ability to send long-form content is decreasing as our customers' attention span and volume of messages they're receiving through a variety of channels is continuing to increase. SMS overall maintains a high 98% open rate overall. 90% of that within the first couple minutes. Our customers are highly engaged and at minimum will read a text message, whereas an email has a much slower cadence to being viewed, to being opened and engaged with whatsoever. Additionally, that response rate, that engagement rate we have on text is dramatically higher than the single-digit response rates that we're seeing on the email space right now. Let's go on. So we know that this works. So how do we ensure that our messages get along to our end destination? And how do we adhere to best practices in the text messaging space along the way? So the big problem that we know that as SMS is dramatically increasing as a valuable channel to interact with our customers, the issue with that is that spammers are also leveraging this channel as a means to use phishing, to do spam promotional texts, and to ultimately erode different business operations that we have. As a result, spammers using text messaging more often means that it's becoming harder and harder to ensure that the right messages coming from trusted brands are going through without spammers also going through. The last thing we want to receive as end customers directly are messages from brands that we never opted in to receive, or from just unwanted messages in general. That's why all of our phones are now actively screening calls and using spam prevention techniques as standard within the space. Part of what we're covering with this toll-free verification is another way to ensure that our messages get to our end destination. So there are a couple different ways that we can deliver messages, either using a short code or a long code, which is either a toll-free or a local type of number. Typically what we're seeing with spammers directly is the use of shortened codes using specific shortened URLs like bit.ly, some of these publicly available link shortener tools, which are blatantly phishing attempts. Very seldom do we see this on the local side, but we do see it on occasion as well. So something that we're doing in the industry to avoid this is by ensuring that brands are linked to the specific numbers that they are going to be using and providing examples of the type of content they're going to be sending to their customers. So what we need to do to ensure that we are registering our brand and becoming a known entity with the major cell phone providers directly is validating two specific things. Identifying, hey, this is my company. This is what I specifically do, and this is the type of messages I'm going to be sending to my customers. So long as we can validate those two things, we can verify the traffic that is going to go through on that toll-free number. I like to tell clients it's like going to the airport and getting through airport security. We have a couple different ways that we can get to the same end destination. One is going to be a lot faster and create a lot less friction. Without verifying our toll-free number, we become subject to a lot of security protocol, a lot of procedures. Whereas going through like a clear or TSA pre-check, we become a known entity and can go through that process much faster because we are registering and known through that process. So what we're going to do on verifying, and Sergey, feel free to jump in as well, is we're going to verify who we are as users. This is the application we're using. This is the number that we're using, as well as validating, okay, this specific number is going to be associated with this type of message that we're going to be sending. Sergey, does that sound appropriate?
Ben, this sounds just right. We're going to be covering some of the specific use cases and what you're gonna have to do as a business, but that's going to be a little bit later within the presentation.
Cool. So we're sending traffic on a variety of different cell phone carriers directly: AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile, Verizon. In Canada, we're relying on a variety of different carriers as well, Bell Canada and a few others, to be able to send this traffic and be the delivery vehicle to get our message from our brand to our end customer's cell phone directly. As a result, when we hit send on a given message, Salesmsg sends that off, sends it through AT&T to your end customer directly. During that process, AT&T AT&T, Sprint, Verizon, a few others have a series of tripwires that they will use on their side to validate, is this number and is this message coming from a known entity? What is the volume of messages that is going across on this specific number? And is there any sort of established relationship between these two end destinations, the sender and the recipient? All three of those checks come into play. And when we're using a toll-free number, where we have less of a local direct presence, area code to area code type of presence, that creates one disconnect in that process to say, what is the entity that is sending this traffic along, and is there any sort of relationship between the two numbers? And 9 times out of 10 with the toll-free, the answer to that question is no, which is why we are going through the toll-free verification process. So we've covered this briefly, but there are 3 different types of numbers that we can send messaging traffic on. We have a dedicated short code. We have a toll-free number, which we're specifically focusing on today, which we are going to register our brand, our use case, and the content, as well as a 10-digit long code or a local phone number, which doesn't require an active verification process. Although for high volume, high output customers, we strongly recommend registering for 10DLC as a secondary compliance step to ensure that your messages get to your end destination if you're using local traffic. Awesome. Let's talk about the process for how do we go through and register our toll-free number. Now that we've talked about the value of why we should do it, how it helps us avoid some of the spam prevention techniques, let's talk about how we actually get it done.
All right, Ben, thank you so much for covering the whys of toll-free number registration. We're going to go through the process of what you're going to do as a business within the Salesmsg product. If you've been a user of Salesmsg app and both desktop and mobile app for a while, you know that at Salesmsg we're staying at the forefront of making sure that your business is not affected or as lightly affected by the tectonic changes that we're seeing within the industry. The first compliance process that we have gone through last year was 10DLC process that Ben has already mentioned. Now it's time for a toll-free number verification. We try to make it as unobtrusive and as easy for you as possible. So you could see actual screenshots from the app. You're gonna within Salesmsg, you see that there is number of different settings that affect your compliance within your organization settings tab. One of those is going to be toll-free number verification. And we're going to cover some of the specific details of what you see here. The first step of the registration process is very similar to 10DLC. You're providing us business information, including some of the unique elements that we're going to have to pass to the carriers in order to verify identity of the business. We try to provide as much information as possible in terms of what these questions are asking. But if at any point you have a question of what this is, you can always click on the information bubble or reach out to our customer support in order to get support in filling out the information itself. And don't be shy doing that. Again, I'm going to reiterate it at the end, but it's important that this information is accurate, because if it isn't, it's going to slow down the process and might double or even triple the time it's going to take for you to get certified. As a second step, you're providing contact information for your business, and this is likely would be the CEO or anybody else at the business that's responsible for compliance and certification. You're also, as a last step, you're accepting terms of service and the privacy statement. And it's easy as just as easy as 1, 2, 3. As long as the information that's provided is accurate, then the whole process should go quite smoothly. Now, as a next step, you're going to be providing information about your business profile. First of all, you need to name the profile, because within toll-free number verification and toll-free number in general allows for your business to have multiple toll-free numbers. We'll talk about best practices around having multiple toll-free numbers, but it's certainly possible for you to have several. So what you're going to do, you're going to name the profile, and you're going to try to estimate the actual message volume that's going to go through your toll-free number. You're gonna try to select your use case. Again, we provided reasonable defaults, and when you click on the drop-down, you will see various use cases, what the toll-free number is going to be used for, and you're also going to provide a short description to augment and supplement what you're going to be selecting from a use case list. Now, we also try to provide reasonable defaults for you in terms of what the sample messages might be like depending on your use case. But still, take a look at this and see if this is consistent with the messages that you're going to be sending out. Again, this is a very, very small sample text, and don't feel shy personalizing this and telling the carriers what the messages are going to be like. It's only going to help when the carriers see consistent messaging flowing through your toll-free number. As a last step, as a penultimate step, you're looking at the opt-in method. As you know, this is not an optional step. Opt-in must be obtained from before you could start texting, and you're simply indicating how the opt-in was achieved from your customers that you're going to be sending the messages to. Now, let's look at the ineligible use cases. Again, if your business falls in one of the categories listed here, you simply cannot use toll-free number for the purpose. You can, some of these use cases are more appropriate for a 10DLC and or loan form, loan code number. So take a look at this. This is going to be posted on our website, so you won't have to search a lot in order to find this. But please be be cognizant of this, because if the business is going to be consistent with one of these categories, it's going to get rejected. Now, let's talk about the deadline. Let's talk about the deadline and optionality for the toll-free number verification. Deadlines are broken down into two separate stages. First is toll-free number registration. So toll-free number registration deadline for new numbers has come and gone, and it was on May 15th. So if you are obviously if you're just signing up for the account and you don't have a toll-free number, it's going to apply to you right away, and you will have to do this if you're getting the number. However, if you have existing toll-free numbers, your deadline is September 30th. It is not, unfortunately, it is not optional. You have to get this done in order for a toll-free number to function properly. Now, let's cover some of the Q&A. Ben, if you have any additions to the process, please feel free to chime in.
Yeah, absolutely. Just kind of, to reframe the why of this. In order to avoid our toll-free numbers not sending out messages to our end customers directly, to avoid any sort of delay in service, we need to validate and verify any toll-free numbers that we have in the account by September 30th. Super simple to do. Obviously, we just provide a bit of information around what company, what the type of messages we're going to be sending, and how are customers entering our ecosystem. So long as we validate all three of those elements, process is super simple, and we bake this into our application directly to allow you to be able to submit this information in the matter of just a couple clicks, probably 2 minutes or less.
On average, thank you, Ben. On average, we see everybody getting through the full process as quick as 10 minutes, and most of the time is taken by you collecting the information that you thought you possibly you didn't know you possibly would need for the process. So again, first business profile, and especially if you have registered for 10 DLC loan code numbers, then you already would have filled out the business profile, and you can absolutely skip that step and just simply fill out the information that's just pertinent for toll-free numbers. Now, I'm going to cover some of the Q&A since we already gone through this process with a number of our clients starting May 15th with new numbers that needed to be registered. We have accumulated quite a few questions that came up, so we want to address it proactively. Is Salesmsg the only company that toll-free number verification affects? Well, the answer is no. This affects industry. This is an industry-wide change. Any company that enables toll-free number traffic flowing through must go through it, and by extension, everybody who's sending any traffic on toll-free numbers must get this done, and we're just doing this on your behalf. How much does it cost for me to register to go through the verification process? Well, the cost is it's free of charge. You don't have to pay anything. This is completely free. What countries is this applicable to? Currently, it's only applicable to 2 countries. If you're sending traffic in the United States and Canada, this is a must-do. No other country has this specific certification and verification as mandatory, specifically as stated. There might be other compliance rules that you might have to adhere to, but for now, this is just applicable to US and Canada. What are the implications of unverified numbers? So there's certainly some punitive elements to this compliance. What we had seen for numbers that has not gone through the verification, we've seen slowdowns, throttling, and sometimes even blacklisting. If that occurs, then it would take quite some time for your number to be returned to a usable state. So please keep that in mind and don't chance it. Toll-free number verification, is it just do you have to do this once or you need to do it multiple times. Unfortunately, this process has to be repeated, not in every step, but at the conclusion, you need to, when you have multiple numbers, and again, as I mentioned at the beginning, there are legitimate business cases where toll-free or multiple toll-free numbers are required. One of the emblematic use cases for that purpose is franchise. If you have a franchise, chances are, and you have it in multiple states, chances are you will have multiple numbers associated, multiple toll-free numbers associated with each franchisee. Now, one of the ways that you can reduce the burden is to submit multiple numbers at the same time in bulk, and we certainly do allow that. But you do have to repeat this process several times if you are registering. If your timeline is not immediate between the numbers and you're getting them on the time lapse, you need to do it multiple times. How long does it take for me to go through the verification process? Well, it varies per business. As I mentioned, if all the information you filled out is accurate, it could take 2-3 days, sometimes up to a week. However, if information is not accurate and the application gets rejected, it could certainly take up to several weeks in order for the process to be repeated. What are the different rules for new and existing numbers? I mentioned it at the beginning. The rules are pretty much the same. It's just the deadline for them was different. So initial deadline was applicable to new numbers, and September 30th is applicable to existing numbers. So please don't procrastinate and go through this process to avoid any service interruptions. That's it. I'm happy to hand it off to Ben for any parting comments.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks so much, Sergey, for kind of covering the process that we baked into our application. We want to be your advisors on how to best implement SMS for your sales, marketing, customer engagement, some combination of 3 different campaigns. And as a part of that partnership with your company, we want to ensure that you guys are ahead of the curve as we're seeing these landscape changes on the SMS and MMS space. So toll-free verification, it benefits everyone. Ultimately, fewer spammers leveraging toll-free numbers to be able to send out phishing and harmful texts benefits everyone. It increases customer confidence in being able to view a text from a toll-free number, engage with the content, as we see a continual decrease in spam traffic on those numbers because they are unverified. Should only take a little while in the process. Again, providing accurate information during the application will help it go much smoother. We're seeing the timelines for that verification climb down over time, especially as we continue to refine our process with our upstream partners and carriers directly. So we'll continue to keep you or your team informed of the status of your numbers within the application directly. But if for any step in the process you have a question, what does this mean? How do I best submit this information for my brand? Feel free to reach out to our support team. We are here to be your advisors in this process and how to best leverage SMS. And if you're watching this webinar and not currently a SalesMsg customer, we would love the opportunity to work with your brand and to achieve your business outcomes using SMS as a vehicle to connect with your customers. Feel free to sign up for a trial and reach out to us if you have any questions about, is this right for my team? Is this right for my business or my campaign? We would love to help.
All right. Well, Ben, thank you so much for the informative webinar. And guys, happy texting.
Thank you.